Hello there guys, welcome back to another episode of James Talks Sports. Much appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new. Don't forget as well, please to like and share the videos. It's very much appreciated. I've managed 100 views on my channel so far. Thank you all so much who's clicking the buttons and liking the videos. Very appreciated. Alright, so first things first. Nice little 4-0 win for Chelsea last night. Although I have got a soft spot for Sevilla because they are my sister's team, so I couldn't really celebrate too much, but qualified for the Champions League at least. Alright, but into the boxing we go. The first thing I've heard is the fact that Glenn McCrory and Evander Holyfield are meant to be having a fight in the UK. Where the hell did that come from? I had no idea about that. And it's meant to be under this BKB banner, which is a British bare knuckle boxing company. I have my thoughts about it. I don't want it to be, first of all, it should not be bare knuckle. No way. I don't like bare knuckle boxing at all. It's too much of a blood sport for me. I think that it should be done in the same, if it's done in the same manner as the Tyson and Roy fight, that's fine. You know, bigger gloves, only 8 rounds, rounds being 2 minutes, and only shots to the body. That to me is fine, because if you, I've watched the Mike and Roy fight again, and it just looks like a body spar. But the thing is, that's okay for guys their age and in their kind of condition. So I think with that, if we keep it like that, it's fine. And I think if Evander Holyfield and Glenn McCrory did it that way, I'd be alright with it. If this is going to feature 10-ounce gloves, 12 rounds at 3 minutes, no, I can't accept that. That to me is far too dangerous and putting someone at risk. So yeah, if they're going to do that, just make sure they do it properly. Because it could see the start of the, like I said, this new seniors sort of league. Like I thought, I could definitely see, because Nige Ben was wanting to have a fight last year, and he was wanting a proper one, which was just, I just was just like, no, I love you, Nigel, but you don't need to be doing that. But if he again did it under the same sort of rules as the Roy and Mike fight, you could definitely get Nigel involved. Bernard Hopkins would probably get involved, and Oscar's talked about coming back as well. So I wouldn't be against it at all. Alright, so next is one fight which completely went under my radar, which I'm surprised about because I know both of these fighters. Billy Joe Saunders versus Martin Murray. I'm a big fan of I like Martin Murray. He's a likeable guy. Been very unlucky in his kind of world title pursuit, really, because everyone he's lost to, bar the kind of Ndam loss, he's lost to legit opponents, and he's been away from home. If you look at his resume, he had that draw against Felix Stern, which many people, including me, thought he won. For Sergio Martinez in Argentina, Golovkin in Monte Carlo, Arthur Abraham in Germany, and George Groves in the O2. Given that he's from Liverpool, fighting in London is technically on away territory for him. So he's just been very unlucky. And he had that win over Rosado, and of course the win over Roberto Garcia as well. So he's an unlucky guy, Martin Murray, but he's a likeable lad. He cares about his family. And I know I can see this as kind of maybe being a last dance fight for him. Maybe they couldn't find Billy Joe another opponent. So, as I know this fight was meant to happen a few years ago, twice in fact. Billy Joe pulled out with injuries. So I kind of, it was always one of those where I thought, what if? Because they're both sort of at the world title level, really. And I would argue Martin Murray's resume is certainly better than Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, if you were to talk about someone who is wasting talent, Billy Joe is one of the first names in boxing that comes to my mind. The other one being Adrian Broner, because I thought he was going to light up the 147, but instead he, mucked about with guns and stuff. Billy Joe, like, in the last 3 years, has been the biggest disappointment to me. I was literally the biggest Billy Joe Saunders fan back in 2016-17. I used to have arguments with guys who I worked with that I thought, because I thought that Billy Joe could beat Canelo. how wrong I was back then, as that ain't happening now. But if you look like his resume, since everyone likes to kind of go on about that David Lemieux performance, and yes, he was brilliant in that David Lemieux performance, but you look at it goes like that to literally that, you know, because he goes from that to Charles Adamu, right, then Shefat Isufu, who I had no idea was before Billy Joe fought him, and Marcelo Caceres. Again, I had no idea who these guys were. No idea at all. I know he was meant to fight Boo Boo before he popped, and then that fight's kind of fallen through. But what annoys me about Billy Joe more than anything is the fact that he calls out Andrade all the time. He calls out Canelo every week. He calls out Golovkin all the time. Yet nothing's happening. You know, and you got offered Canelo this earlier on this year, and he turned it down because of the money. It's like, well, why? You know, you say you want the fight, but you're not taking them when they're offered to you. So what are we as fans supposed to think, other than you're kind of ducking them, really? And a lot of people still have this kind of view that he can beat Canelo. I don't think he does. No way. Canelo is a nasty night swerve for anyone at 160 or 168, even 175 really. So don't try and tell me that, because I'm really not convinced. And in the, you know, if you look in the past 5 years, he has fought 2 credible opponents. That being David Lemieux and Andy Lee. I'm not counting the Eubank performance because they were both at British level at the time. This was world level opponents. Andy Lee, who was kind of at the later end of his career, and David Lemieux, who had literally just come off being beaten up by Golovkin. Then you got Willie Monroe in there. Again, Golovkin had already beat him, so he's not done me any favours to think that he's worth being considered. I mean, what has he done to deserve? He calls out Canelo all the time. What's he done to deserve that fight? You know, you need to be active now. You know, Callum Smith, yes, he's got a world title, but Callum Smith has at least been active. And I know his resume is questionable as well, but at least he's doing something. So this will be an interesting one. I'll try and watch it if I can. Billy Joe is going to have to look good, very good, if he wants to impress people that he is, you know, still credible. If he's still got what it takes to be at that world level, to be taken seriously. Because in my mind, him versus Andrade, tough to call, very tough to call. But I'm slightly leaning towards Andrade, because he's at least kind of doing a bit more recently, and he's not doing all the rubbish outside the ring that Billy Joe's doing, with the prostitutes and the drug addicts and that stupid video he made earlier on this year about punching women. I was like, that was just disgraceful. I don't like him personally, but as a boxer, you have to admit there is a good boxer in there. He just needs to bring it back and just kind of focus on his boxing, focus on your career, and we might be able to see him against some of those bigger names. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I do put Billy Joe to win points, but he's going to have to look good if he wants to be taken seriously again, because it's been a long time since we've seen him at his best. A very long time. Alright, and then the bigger fight of the weekend, which I wanted to look at, was the one over in America, the AT&T Stadium, Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia. I'm very interested in this one because I like Danny Garcia and I like Errol, really. They're both likeable guys. They're both kind of still got a bit of mystery about them as to how good they are. I mean, you have to praise Errol for taking this fight and still being alive. I mean, if you've seen the pictures of his car after the car crash and the video of it happening, I watched it again last night, and it's just like, how this guy is not paralyzed, how he is not dead, I do not know. So credit to Errol for surviving. You know, that's why, you know, drink driving, don't do it. But Errol could have easily come back and had a fight against an absolute tomato can, and I would have been like, fair enough. You know, you were in hospital, you had surgery, you've been in a life-threatening car accident, fair enough. But instead, he's come back and he's going straight in there with Danny, who I am not sleeping on in the slightest, because Danny has shown every time he gets in there with a better opponent, he looks better. You know, he's only got 2 losses on his record to Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, both legit world champions in their own right. The Keith one was a split decision, which was a very, very close. And you look at him against, in the fights he had against Morales, for example, and the fight with him and Zab, which was, the build-up was absolutely incredible. So I'm not sleeping on Danny, but I do think Errol has kind of had a bit of an epiphany. Like, he was, after the Kell Brook fight, he certainly had this kind of boogeyman arrogance about him. Like, he kind of already saw himself as the best at 147, which is fair enough. You know, you've won a world title, you've beaten, you know, a big tough guy like Kell Brook, but his opposition after that wasn't the best. You know, everyone was kind of avoiding him. You know, Keith Thurman did everything to avoid talking about Errol. Sean wasn't really that interested, and it took Mikey to come up from 135 to go up against him, which is where I think the kind of fear factor ended, because, you know, his fight versus Mikey went 12 rounds. The fact that you couldn't get Mikey out of there, even though he's coming up from 135, 2 weight classes, kind of might have lessened the fear factor a bit. And then he got in there with Sean in a fight of the year contender for me. It was Errol, Sean, Taylor versus Prograis, and Inouye Donaire, which were the fights of the year for 2019 for me. And Sean was very unlucky in that fight, very unlucky, but Errol just did enough to win. Whereas with Danny, you look at him, his fight versus Keith, he starts off slow, but he eventually just gets his rhythm going, and he looks great. He looked great versus Keith. He looked great versus Sean, just very unlucky to not get those fights, get the wins, sorry. So I think this could be a good one. I am going to go with Errol to get the win, points, because I'm not sure, he won't get Danny out of there, because Danny has got a brilliant chin. He's got a brilliant chin. He's got pretty decent, alright head movement. He's got a right hand, which is like a laser. You see him, like, you know, set it up. It's like, pew! And but slow foot movement, and like I said, he starts slow and then picks his kind of momentum up later on. Errol will start fast and stay fast for the entire fight, because he's just a machine. He's just a machine. It will be interesting. I still think Errol now, after he's kind of had that car accident, he's lost. He had this kind of he was hanging around with the wrong crowd. You know, you saw the pictures of him drunk, constantly out, constantly in nightclubs, constantly like hanging around with Adrian Broner and Tank and the Charlos, and they had this real hood mentality about them, where they have all the kind of jewellery and guns and stuff. Nah. He needs to get rid of that, because it's just a negative on him as a person, and it's a negative on the sport of boxing. You know, look what it's done to Adrian Broner. He's now in prison as a result. So I'm glad. I hope he just steers clear of that, focuses on his boxing. If he wins this fight, it'll be a serious kind of question of, right, when are we going to see Errol versus Terence? Because that is the one, that is ultimately the one we want. Okay, I'm going to do a video later on, just before the year is out, on 10 fights that I personally want to see in 2021. This is one of them. So credit to both guys, credit to Danny, credit to Errol for coming back and going straight in there with someone who's a legit threat to him like Danny. But I do expect Errol to get the job done. And there's also Anthony Yard versus Linden Arthur, which is a good little fight as well, a good little British fight. I do expect Anthony to win that, because I just think he's had a bit more experience, but I think Linden Arthur's a good credible opponent. I like Anthony Yard a lot, and I'd love to see him versus Buatsi one day. I would love to see it. If he was to be a world champion, then Linden Arthur or Buatsi gets one. Who knows? But that's all for today. Let me know what you guys thought. Thanks for passing by, and I'll see you next time on Sunday for the review. Peace.